Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, and today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. On September 27, 2020, a man called emergency services around 6 p.m. Lamantine County dispatchers recorded the call in which the man said a neighbor woman ran up to his house screaming for help. She claimed she was fleeing from her husband who had just attacked her in the house. The woman was crying continuously, but she did not look like a victim at all because she was holding a gun. Police officers who arrived on the scene found the husband's attacker alive in the bedroom with 2 gunshot wounds. One was to the leg and the other to the chest. The bullet also grazed the right arm. 2 more bullets were found in the wall, as well as 4 shell casings from a .45 caliber pistol were near the injured man. The victim was taken to a local hospital where he died of his injuries an hour later. Police officers thoroughly examined the scene of the tragedy and interviewed the woman, but she did not make contact with law enforcement. She was not arrested that night, and detectives began investigating her claim of self-defense. The injured woman turned out to be Ashley Benefield, and the man who was killed was her husband, Douglas Benefield. But let's find out how events really unfolded that day, and could Ashley really have saved herself only by shooting her husband? Our story begins in sunny Florida in August 2016. Ashley Byers and Douglas Benefield met at a Republican fundraising event in Palm Beach. The man was so charmed by the young girl that he asked for her phone number after dinner. That same evening, their romantic correspondence began. At the time of their acquaintance, 24-year-old Ashley Byers worked in the campaign headquarters of Donald Trump in Sarasota. Her job was to encourage evangelicals to vote and hold rallies. In addition to her political activities, Ashley was also an aspiring model and dancer with the Maryland Youth Ballet, where she occasionally performed. However, Ashley dreamed of becoming a famous ballerina and starting her own ballet company. Douglas Benefield was 30 years older than Ashley. He was originally from Charleston, a former Navy pilot and a successful consultant who worked with technology companies and defense contractors. He was also involved in real estate and the restaurant business. Douglas was widowed about a year ago and single-handedly raised his 15-year-old daughter, Eva. The grown man and the young girl were brought together by conservative values and a love of guns. Despite the large age difference between them, immediately sparked sparks, and after only 13 days, they got married. A modest celebration was held in Douglas's hometown of Charleston. Among the invited guests was only Douglas's friend, Trip Cormany, who was an ordained Episcopal pastor at the time. Trip wasn't thrilled and resented what he considered too short a time for them to have known each other, but agreed to perform the ceremony, for Douglas was deeply religious, so he wanted to marry Ashley before he became intimate with her. For the rest of the couple's family and friends, the wedding was a surprise. Douglas did not even invite his daughter to the wedding. Eva Benefield was 15 years old at the time and was still taking the trauma of losing her mom hard. Just 9 months ago, Eva came home from school and discovered the dead body of her mother, Renee. She had died of an undiagnosed heart condition. Eva was stunned by her father's sudden marriage to a girl who was only 9 years older than her. After Ashley moved into Douglas's home in Charleston, the relationship between her and Eva did not work out, which became an occasion for regular quarrels and scandals within the family. The close father-daughter relationship suffered greatly because of Douglas's new wife. Ashley did not want to become a stepmother or just a friend for her husband's daughter. Eva, on the other hand, felt that she was simply losing her father. Ashley Benefield dreamed of creating a ballet company, which would include dancers of all nationalities with any physique, and Douglas promised to make his wife's dream a reality. He idolized his young wife. Douglas constantly arranged romantic dates and surprises for Ashley, giving her flowers and telling her she was the most beautiful. Tall, slender, and graceful Ashley, like a swan, really, charmed everyone who knew her. Her blue eyes radiated kindness. Her long brown hair, like plumage for a bird, added beauty and glamour. Douglas saw only spiritual purity in his Ashley and was willing to do anything for her. So soon, her dream came true. Combining Ashley's passion for ballet with Douglas's business savvy, they founded the American National Ballet in Charleston and advertised to screen ballet dancers from all over the country. The goal was to run a non-profit ballet company and for-profit school. In the summer of 2017, Ashley and Douglas began holding the first auditions. But in addition to starting a ballet company, Ashley also dreamed of becoming a mother and was planning a pregnancy. This is exactly what happened in the midst of creating the ballet company. In the late summer of 2017, about 40 dancers from around the world began arriving in Charleston to work with Ashley. But she never showed up for another audition. All the work fell on Douglas's shoulders. Douglas hired ballet master Michael Wise to train the dancers. But it was Ashley who many dancers were waiting for. But she wasn't planning on doing ballet anytime soon, citing a serious condition due to her pregnancy. Despite the growing tension between Ashley and Eva, Douglas continued to help his wife follow her dream, to start a ballet company in Charleston with a unique mission. The man, who is quite distant from ballet with the help of hired choreographers and managers, tried to run the business on his own. But the company soon ran into legal trouble after being sued by dancers and choreographers who accused the couple of breach of contract, claiming they were fired just weeks after being hired. After leaving, Ashley Douglas brought in new managers in hopes of getting the ballet up and running, but they made drastic changes, and Ashley's original vision of dancers of all ethnicities failed. Douglas was so preoccupied with the ballet that he didn't notice how tensions between Ashley and Eva continued to mount. One day after Douglas and Ashley argued over Eva, he lost his temper and fired a gun into the ceiling of their home. Those who knew him said it was uncharacteristic of the calm and non-confrontational Douglas. In late August, citing a difficult pregnancy, Ashley returned to Florida to her mother, while Douglas was still trying to establish the work of the ballet in Charleston. On October 23, 2017, a group of dancers were called into a meeting, told to sign non-disclosure agreements, and fired. Online, Ashley spoke out against the rest of the company, including Douglas. "The new management has destroyed everything we've worked so hard for, and I cannot stand behind them or their actions," she reported. A&B was created to be different from any other dance company and should have set a new standard in how it treats its dancers. Everyone involved should be ashamed of how it was handled. It seemed as if a great idea had dissipated like smoke. A few months later, the American National Ballet was finished for good. At the conclusion of the ballet case, Douglas had lost over $100,000. His ballet nightmare was over. Douglas threw a farewell party for A&B, as he had worked closely with many dancers for a long time. However, when he returned home, it was not his pregnant wife who was waiting for him, but a farewell note. In her 4-page letter, Ashley listed all of Douglas's shortcomings and called his attitude towards her possessive and controlling. She wrote that the incident where he fired a gun into the ceiling had made her fear for her life and the safety of her unborn child, so she had to leave him. His heart was broken. But as it later turned out, Ashley's note was only the beginning. The months that followed were even more difficult for Douglas, as he was faced with a blow from the man who was dear to him. In late November 2017, Douglas, still hoping for reconciliation, sent Ashley a birthday present. He knew how much his wife loved tea. He bought a beautiful teapot, cups and saucers, and a specialty tea designed for pregnant women. Ashley accepted the gift, but she wasn't going to put up with it. Instead, she filed a series of charges against Douglas. Among them was poisoning her with her tea. Her claims were investigated, but nothing was found to substantiate such grave accusations. But Ashley didn't stop there and sent her hair to an independent lab for analysis to determine if she had been poisoned. The report stated that her hair contained higher than normal levels of aluminum, zinc, and other metals. 3 weeks before giving birth, without Douglas's knowledge, Ashley went into the hospital. She was at Tampa General Hospital. The woman was very frightened and claimed that the baby had been intrauterine exposure to heavy metals because her husband had poisoned her. Ashley went on to accuse Douglas of physical abuse without evidence. She also claimed that he held her captive in his Charleston home. Even though Douglas was hundreds of miles away, She still claimed he was stalking her everywhere, starting in Florida. With no way to know if what Ashley told hospital staff was true, management took precautions for her safety and gave her a new name, Christina. 3 days later, doctors performed a C-section. The baby girl was healthy, but Ashley continued to worry that her baby had been poisoned. Douglas, however, wasn't ready to give up. He sent Ashley text after text begging her to change her mind. After all, he believed he still had a family that he thought would be perfect, happy, and faithful, but it had fallen apart in the most questionable way. Ashley was in no mood to forgive Douglas, much less go back. She decided to go to the authorities and add a new batch of accusations in her husband's direction. She reported Douglas's mistreatment of his oldest daughter, Eva, and brought in Florida Child Protective Services to check it out. Ashley told police that Douglas had anger issues and told all about the day he fired a gun in the house. Investigators interviewed Eva, so also Douglas was interviewed, and that gun incident was investigated, but in the end, Douglas was exonerated. He was examined by a psychologist who did a full psychological evaluation, which showed that Douglas was perfectly fine and not dangerous. Ashley couldn't believe it, and once again wrote a long letter to Douglas. The lines at the end made it clear for him not to hit on her or try to stalk her, or it would end up with the police again. She didn't look like a person ready to resume a relationship. Another scathing note to Ashley Douglas left no doubt about her feelings. In the summer of 2018, the poisoning allegations came to a head when Ashley and Douglas met in a Bradenton courtroom. Douglas wanted to see his newborn daughter, while Ashley asked for a restraining order. But the judge was not convinced by 2 days of testimony and lab test results presented by Ashley. Judge Diane Moreland declared that there was not the slightest credible evidence that Miss Benefield had ever been poisoned or suffered from any illness caused by any poison. This ruling opened the door for Douglas to finally see his daughter. A few days later, he and Ashley met outside the sheriff's office so the father could see the child. To the surprise of those around them, Ashley was suddenly very cooperative. She then immediately went straight to Douglas, handed the baby over very cordially. She even offered to spend time with the three of them. For most of the next year, Douglas, Ashley, and their daughter seemed happy. Douglas even moved into a neighboring apartment in Florida, so he wouldn't disturb Ashley's peace and still be close to them. But in August 2019, when he met Ashley to pick up his daughter, was stunned to see an engagement ring on his wife's finger. He hired a private investigator to find out what was going on. The private investigator informed Douglas that Ashley was dating another man, and in November 2019, the man filed for divorce. Shortly afterward, Ashley began filing complaints against Douglas Benefield again. Ashley accused him of indecent behavior towards his young daughter. She accused him of a number of terrible things. Douglas adamantly denied harming his daughter, and authorities accepted the lack of evidence. Then, in March 2020, Douglas wrote an email to the sheriff's office accusing Ashley of having a split personality. But a few months later, Douglas did what seemed unthinkable. In a dizzying move, he announced that he and Ashley were going to try to be a family again and were moving to Maryland. Friends held their breath, but hoped for the sake of their young daughter that her parents' miraculous reunion was about to happen. On September 27, 2020, Douglas Benefield was preparing to start a new life. He was moving with Ashley, their young daughter, and Ashley's mother, Alicia, from Florida to Maryland. So let's pretend it's Sunday night. The time is about 5:30 in the evening. Ashley meets Douglas to start packing for the move. Douglas and Ashley are at Alicia's house, happily packing. Alicia decides to take a walk with the baby to a nearby park. Ashley is left alone with Douglas. They talk, but suddenly Ashley announces that they are moving without him. Douglas was angry. He yelled that they would move in together as a family and start a new life. The man began moving filled boxes in a rage. Ashley Benefield tried to leave the house, but Douglas allegedly grabbed her left arm, yanked her back, and asked where she was going. He threatened her with his index finger like a naughty child with the words, "You can't leave me." But for Ashley, it was enough to make her fear for her life once again. Ashley Benefield ran into her bedroom and grabbed the gun she legally owned. She pointed the gun at Douglas and ordered him to leave her alone and leave the house. Douglas did not stop and continued walking toward Ashley, hoping to calm her down. As he continued toward her, she began shooting. Ashley saw Douglas fall, and his legs lifted into the air as his feet slipped out from under him, and he suddenly collapsed. The woman ran to the neighbor's house screaming for help. 2 neighbors on a dog walk saw her running outside with a gun, crying and screaming. However, only Ashley knows exactly what really happened that night in the house, but she has not made any statements. 5 weeks after the shooting, Ashley was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. She pleaded not guilty. She was released on bail after spending about 2 weeks in jail. Ashley began cooperating with authorities on November 4, 2020. At that time, she was formally arrested and charged with second-degree murder. She is currently being held without bail pending a future court date. In February 2023, Ashley Benefield's defense filed a motion to dismiss the case, arguing that she shot her husband in self-defense. The 105-page motion outlines her side of the story, explaining what led to the fatal shooting. Ashley Benefield's attorney, Neil Taylor, said the motion is in part their attempt to shed light on her side of the story. In the motion to dismiss, Ashley Benefield's attorneys added evidence, documents, and photos to support their case. These include photos of Douglas Benefield that show his impeccable physique and strength, as well as a cut on the side of Ashley Benefield's body that she allegedly received from a moving box that Douglas was moving in her direction. Another photo of Ashley Benefield with a black eye. The defense claims the photos of her injuries were taken the day of the shooting. Defense attorneys have tried every way they can to implicate Douglas of cruelty and uncontrolled aggression, adding to the case with a long-standing admission that he punched their dog and punched a hole in the wall. In July 2018, he allegedly admitted to pulling a gun out of his sleeve and shooting at the ceiling, even throwing the gun at a wall, in an attempt to silence Ashley Benefield during an argument. During the initial hearing, Assistant State's Attorneys Suzanne O'Donnell and Rebecca Friel, as well as Ashley Benefield's attorney Neil Taylor, argued whether Ashley Benefield's actions the night she fired a gun at Doug Benefield were self-defense. A Lamantine County judge denied a motion to dismiss the case against Ashley, who is accused of killing her ex-husband, nearly 2 months after she appeared in court for a hearing. Circuit Court Judge Stephen White said the totality of the evidence presented during the hearing showed that the state proved that the killing of Douglas Benefield was not a single act of necessary self-defense, but instead was the culmination of a long, concerted effort by Ashley Benefield. The ruling rejected the defense's version of what happened and agreed with the state that probable cause existed to continue the case. The competent and substantial evidence presented by the state clearly and convincingly demonstrates that the defendant is not entitled to judicial immunity from prosecution because she was not justified in using deadly force against the victim on September 27, 2020, Judge White wrote in the ruling. So Ashley Benefield was denied dismissal of the case and immunity. The evidence presented in court was not enough to convince the prosecutor and the court to shoot. Court documents state that on that fateful day of September 27, 2020, Douglas Benefield went to visit his child at the Lakewood Ranch home where the suspect was staying with her mother. An argument ensued, resulting in him being shot. He later died from his injuries at a local hospital. Ashley Benefield claimed Douglas grabbed her and began hitting her when she tried to leave. Authorities' affidavit states that based on the entry wounds on Douglas's body, he was not facing Ashley when she began shooting. He also did not take any defensive position. Douglas was not found to have any weapon on or near him, but as detectives investigated, Ashley's claim of self-defense became problematic. Apparently, the man didn't even expect his beloved wife to shoot him. Ashley Benefield insists she is innocent and awaiting trial. She has not yet pleaded guilty. To date, there are many unanswered questions surrounding Douglas and Ashley's marriage. All we know is that by her own admission, she did shoot her husband and caused his death. Is it possible that Ashley was really afraid of Douglas and was prepared to defend herself at any time of the day or night? Of course she could have been afraid of him. Fear is one of the strongest human emotions that is easily controlled and manipulated, but it's impossible to be afraid of something that isn't there. Ashley had lived in an invented fear for years and constantly expected to be attacked. She killed her husband for threatening her with a finger in her face. It sounds very much like paranoia when, along with the poisoning complaints, it was worth having not only Douglas, but Ashley checked out by a psychologist. It's hard to know if Ashley was a victim or a skillful manipulator. In the end, Ashley was charged with second-degree murder and is currently still awaiting trial. Florida Stand Your Ground law allows a person to use or threaten to use deadly force against another person if they reasonably believe they need to defend themselves from an immediate threat and they have no need to retreat. This means that if a person in Florida believes that he or she is in serious danger of being injured or killed and is not engaged in criminal activity, he or she has the right to defend himself or herself. Unlike traditional self-defense laws, a person must not try to get away from an attacker first. Now that the defense has invoked Stand Your Ground, the burden is on the prosecution to prove the shooting was not justified. Taylor said he expects District Court Judge Stephen White to give the prosecution enough time to read and understand the motion before setting a date for another hearing. To Douglas Benefield, Ashley was that innocent, pure white swan, the epitome of gentleness and purity. But beneath those white feathers was an evil woman. She's the black swan. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel. There are many shocking stories ahead of you.